Anya Sharma was the new girl at a new school, a place she'd just landed in. She hailed from a world where survival was a lesson in combat, where 8 years of mixed martial arts had sculpted her hands into instruments of defense. Feel for a moment the quiet strength she carried, a black belt concealed by a teenager's silence. But the predators of the hallway couldn't see that truth. They saw a quiet girl, a solitary figure, a perfect mark. And so they descended upon her with their demands and their venom, cranking up the pressure with each passing day. Then, one afternoon, a line was invisibly drawn and carelessly crossed. A wave of laughter crested and broke. Someone declared she had it coming. The entire hallway became an audience, but Anya refused to shatter. They were so certain she was weak. They were convinced she would just absorb the abuse. They were profoundly, deeply mistaken. The alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m., but Anya Sharma was already wide awake, her gaze lost in the unfamiliar geography of her new bedroom ceiling. Iron Haven felt like it was a whole lifetime behind her, though a mere 3 days had passed since the moving truck had rumbled away from their old life. She slid from the bed, her bare feet silent on the floor, as she descended to the basement, where her mother had already resurrected the heavy bag in its new corner. 40 minutes later, beads of sweat traced paths down her forehead as her morning ritual concluded. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. The sequence was as natural as breathing. Imagine the countless hours, the 8 years of devotion that had etched these movements into her very soul. But today they carried a different weight. Today they felt like a necessity. "Anya, breakfast?" her mother's voice echoed from upstairs. Dr. Lena Sharma stood at the stove, the fabric of her scrubs a familiar sight from her night shift at Viridian General. "How are you feeling about today, my love?" "Fine." Anya snagged a slice of toast. "It's just another school." Concern softened her mother's eyes. "I know this change isn't simple. Viridian is a world away from what we knew. A world away was a gentle description for the chasm she felt. As Anya stepped through the main doors of Viridian High, a vast ocean of faces confirmed the truth she already carried. Out of 800 students, she could tally the faces like hers on 2 hands. The hallways thrummed with the typical energy of a new day, but you could almost feel the conversations stilling, pausing, as she moved through the current. Whispers eddied in her wake. She kept her chin up, her shoulders loose, just as Master Kai had instructed her. Never broadcast weakness, but never go looking for a fight. First period biology passed in a blur of calm. Second period history was a tolerable silence. But it was at lunch that the true lessons of Viridian High began. The cafeteria unfolded before her like a living, breathing social atlas. The popular elite held court at the central tables. Athletes staked their claim in one corner. The drama club congregated by the windows. Anya secured a sandwich and scanned the landscape for an unclaimed patch of territory. "Oh, well, look what the cat dragged in." The voice sliced through the noise from 3 tables away. Roman Calloway stood a towering 6'2", radiating the kind of effortless arrogance that grows only in the absence of challenge. His Letterman jacket draped flawlessly over powerful shoulders, and a smile played on his lips, but never touched his cold, blue eyes. At his back, Leo Grant methodically cracked his knuckles, while Finn Carter offered a low snicker. A hush fell over the cafeteria. You could feel every eye in the room pivot toward the storm gathering in its center. Anya simply continued toward a vacant table, but Roman shifted, planting himself directly in her path. "I'm speaking to you." His voice held the casual command of a man who had never been denied. "We need to have a chat." She halted, her gaze meeting his without a hint of fear. "About what?" "About the way things operate here." Roman's smile stretched, revealing an excess of teeth. "You see, new arrivals typically contribute a small welcome fee. Think of it as insurance. A way to make sure nothing unfortunate happens to them." Leo and Finn materialized at her sides, their proximity so close she could smell the sharp scent of their cologne. The cafeteria was now utterly, completely silent. 200 students were watching as if this were the evening's entertainment. Insurance against what? Anya's voice was a level, curious tone, not a confrontational one. "Mishaps," Roman shrugged with theatrical carelessness. "Lockers that refuse to open. Textbooks that go on walkabouts. People who accidentally bump into you in the halls. It's funny how clumsy some people can be, especially the ones who don't fit in. Finn chimed in with a venomous grin. Anya placed her lunch tray on the nearest table with deliberate grace. When she turned back to face Roman, her posture was still a study in relaxation, but you could see a new light, a new focus, ignite in her eyes. "I don't pay for protection." The words hung in the charged atmosphere like a thrown gauntlet. Roman's smile flickered for a fraction of a second, before roaring back to full intensity. "Sight. That's where you're mistaken, girl. Everybody pays. The only question is if you pay the easy way or the hard way." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that somehow carried across the silent expanse. "Unless, of course, you believe you're too good for our little arrangement here, that you're somehow better than the rest of us." "Well, I don't pay at all." She retrieved her tray and navigated around him, heading for the empty table she had originally chosen. For a beat, Roman stood motionless, clearly unaccustomed to such outright defiance. The entire cafeteria held its breath, waiting. "This isn't finished," he shouted after her, his voice loud enough to be a public declaration. "Nobody disrespects me in my school. Nobody." Anya sat down and began to unwrap her sandwich, as if the entire exchange had been a figment of her imagination. Yet her peripheral vision was a sharp, focused lens, tracking Roman's every move as he and his crew stormed out of the room. At a table across the way, a student named Elias Reed slowly shook his head, muttering to his friend, "That girl has no idea what she just unleashed." The low hum of conversation gradually returned, but the energy in the room had irrevocably shifted. The news would spread like wildfire through the school before the lunch bell rang again. The new girl had just declared open war on Roman Calloway. Anya took a deliberate bite of her sandwich, chewing with measured calm. She had hoped for at least a single day free of conflict. But some things you come to realize are inevitable, and surrendering to bullies had never been in her vocabulary. The real question wasn't if Roman would strike back. It was when and just how far he would be willing to push it. The retaliation began before second period was even over. Anya walked to her locker, key ready, but the lock was a stubborn, immovable object. She tried once more, double-checking the combination she had committed to memory that very morning. Nothing. "Having some issues?" Leo Grant materialized beside her, a smug grin plastered on his face. "Locks can be a real pain when they get damaged." She inspected the mechanism more closely. Someone had meticulously crammed chewing gum into the keyhole. "Truly mature." "Just a taste of what's to come," Leo said, walking away backward, his eyes fixed on her, savoring her reaction. Roman has a very long memory. Third period American history passed without any trouble. But as Anya collected her things, she noticed her notebook was gone, the one holding 3 days of crucial notes. She searched her bag twice, a futile exercise, before finally giving up. Out in the hallway, she spotted Finn Carter, holding her notebook aloft for a group of freshmen, making grand, exaggerated motions as he read her handwriting aloud in a mocking tone. "Behold this elegant penmanship. She must think she's a real somebody." Anya approached with a calm, steady pace. "That belongs to me. Prove it." Finn held it just out of her reach, a classic playground taunt. "Maybe if you ask me nicely, I'll think about giving it back." She didn't ask. She didn't lunge for it either. Instead, she drew her phone from her pocket and snapped a clear photograph of him holding the notebook. "I deceit. What do you think you're doing?" Finn's bravado faltered. "Evidence," she stated simply, slipping the phone back into her pocket. "In case I decide to file a report for theft." Finn's face turned a shade of crimson, but he flung the notebook at her feet before stalking off down the hall. The pages scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. As Anya knelt to retrieve her notes, a pair of worn-out sneakers entered her field of vision. She looked up into the face of Elias Reed, the same student from the cafeteria. "Bitsy tot. You need to hear some advice," Elias said in a low voice, his eyes darting around to ensure they weren't being watched. "Ah, I'm listening." "Roman Calloway isn't just some rich kid acting tough. His father owns half the businesses in this town, including the car dealership where my mother works. His uncle is the chief of police. When Roman decides he wants something to happen, it happens." Anya stood, clutching the rescued notes to her chest. "Are you trying to frighten me?" "I'm trying to save you." Elias's voice was filled with genuine concern. "Last year there was this kid, Mateo Diaz, a transfer just like you." Roman decided Mateo was getting a little too friendly with some girl Roman was interested in. Mateo ended up with a broken nose and 3 fractured ribs. Fell down a flight of stairs, according to the official report. And you buy that? Ugh. I believe Mateo transferred out of Viridian 2 weeks later. Elias leaned closer, his voice dropping even lower. Look, I get it. It feels good to stand up for yourself, but Roman doesn't play by the rules, and he never fights by himself. Whatever you're considering doing, just don't. Before Anya could formulate a response, Elias melted back into the river of students flowing between classes. The afternoon brought a steady, escalating campaign of harassment. Someone accidentally spilled a carton of chocolate milk on her backpack during the second lunch period. In chemistry lab, her safety goggles mysteriously disappeared, forcing her to use a scratched-up spare pair that made reading the measurements an impossible task. By the time 6th period rolled around, a clear pattern had taken shape. Roman's crew was taking turns making her life a misery, always with a shield of plausible deniability, always with a gallery of witnesses who would only ever see accidents, not targeted harassment. But 7th period was where they pushed things too far. Anya sat in her English class, trying to immerse herself in the discussion of To Kill a Mockingbird, when Roman's hand shot into the air. "Mrs. Davies, I think we should hear what our newest student has to say about this book. I'll bet she has some really unique insights into the themes." Mrs. Davies smiled, a gesture of encouragement. "Anya, would you be willing to share your thoughts on Harper Lee's depiction of racial injustice?" The trap was painfully obvious, but Anya responded with thoughtful grace, discussing the novel's exploration of deep-seated prejudice and moral fortitude. She spoke for 2 minutes, her points articulated with clarity and intelligence. When she concluded, Roman began to clap, a slow, deliberate sound. "Wow, that was just so well spoken. You're incredibly articulate for—" He let the word hang in the charged silence, a poison dart left to find its mark. "I mean, it's just wonderful to hear someone who can express themselves with such clarity." A wave of silence washed over the classroom. Mrs. Davies's face flushed with color. But she seemed paralyzed, unsure of how to confront the blatant racial insinuation without escalating the situation. "Thank you," Anya said, her voice a calm, even C. "I appreciate you taking notice of my ability to communicate effectively." Roman's smile wavered for a moment at her poised response, but he pressed on. "It's just so refreshing, you know. Sometimes people from certain backgrounds have a hard time with academic discussions." The silence in the room grew heavier, more oppressive. A few students began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. "I am certain you'll discover that people from all backgrounds possess the capacity to surprise you," Anya replied, her voice now steady as steel. When the bell finally rang, she gathered her books without any sense of hurry, walking out of the classroom with her head held high. But deep inside, something had hardened, had crystallized into a point of no return. The games were officially over. Roman had just crossed a boundary that could never be uncrossed. Down the hallway, she could hear Roman's laughter mixing with his friends, no doubt congratulating himself on his oh-so-clever performance. He had absolutely no idea what he had just unleashed. Friday morning began with a new decoration on Anya's locker. Someone had taped a banana to the cold metal door, accompanied by a note that read, "Welcome to the jungle," written in Roman's unmistakable script. She dismantled the display without a flicker of expression, fully aware of the students gathering to witness her reaction. Some of their faces held shame, others held barely concealed smirks. Anya crumpled the note and tossed it into a nearby trash can, but she carefully pocketed the piece of tape as evidence. "Oh, didn't you appreciate your welcome gift?" Roman materialized with his customary entourage, his voice pitched loud enough for the growing audience. "I was worried you might be feeling homesick for the urban wildlife." "Creative," Anya responded, closing her locker with a deliberate, calm motion. "But you might want to spend some time improving your penmanship. It makes it far too easy to identify the source." Roman's jaw clenched. He was not accustomed to his targets talking back, especially not in front of a crowd. Perhaps you require a lesson in respect. Perhaps you require a lesson in basic human decency. The hallway buzzed with the sound of whispered reactions. Students began to pull out their phones, sensing that something far more significant was brewing just beneath the surface. Throughout the morning, the campaign of harassment intensified. During gym class, someone managed to sprinkle itching powder inside her gym clothes. At lunch, Leo Grant intentionally collided with her, sending her entire tray of food crashing to the floor in a chaotic mess. "Oops," Leo said, making no effort to hide his smug grin. "I hope you're not too clumsy to get that cleaned up." Anya knelt down to gather the scattered remnants of her lunch, while other students carefully stepped around her. A few offered a hesitant hand, but she waved them away. She could endure Roman's childish games. What she was finding unbearable was the growing crowd that seemed to be reveling in the spectacle. The absolute breaking point arrived during the 8th period study hall. Anya was seated alone at a corner table, focused on her calculus homework, when Roman and his crew made their approach. The study hall monitor had momentarily stepped out, leaving 30 students without supervision. "Hey, everyone," Roman declared, his voice booming across the quiet room. "I have something very special I'd like to share." He pulled out his phone, and suddenly, Anya's voice filled the room, broadcast through a small Bluetooth speaker. It was her discussion from English class the day before, but it had been twisted, edited, and manipulated. Her thoughtful analysis of racial injustice had been spliced together with unrelated audio clips, making it sound as though she were spewing inflammatory remarks about white people. The edited recording presented her as an angry, racist outsider who despised her new school and every single person in it. Students stared, their faces a mixture of shock, confusion, and in some cases, anger. "I guess now we know how she really feels about all of us," Roman said, pocketing his phone with an air of deep satisfaction. "It's a good thing we got to hear her true thoughts." Anya sat frozen as a storm of whispers erupted around her. Some students looked at her with suspicion, others with disgust. A few seemed to grasp that the audio was a fabrication, but their voices were lost in the tide of those who accepted it as truth. "That's not what I said." Anya's voice cut through the noise, but Roman immediately spoke over her. "Are you trying to call me a liar? Everyone in this room just heard you. Everyone in this room just heard you manipulate a recording to make me sound like something I'm not." Roman took a step closer to her table. "Why would I possibly need to manipulate anything? We all heard what kind of person you really are." The study hall door swung open, and Mrs. Gable, the monitor, returned. The room instantly fell silent, the students suddenly engrossed in their homework. "Is everything all right in here?" Mrs. Gable asked, sensing the palpable tension in the air. "Perfect," Roman said, flashing his politician's smile. "We were just having a friendly discussion about current events." When the final bell rang, Anya collected her books with hands that trembled only slightly. Students filed out of the room, some deliberately avoiding her gaze, others staring openly. The damage was done. By the next morning, Roman's doctored recording would be a viral sensation across social media. As she walked toward her last class, she caught fragments of conversations drifting in the air. "I can't believe she would say that stuff. She seemed so quiet and nice. Roman was right about her all along." At her locker after school, Anya found Elias waiting for her. "That recording was a fake," he said quietly. "I was in that English class. I heard what you actually said." "It doesn't matter now." Anya pulled on her jacket. "The damage is done. You could fight it. You could prove it was edited. Or," she said, her voice low, "I could fight the source." Elias grabbed her arm. "Don't do anything reckless. Roman is expecting you to retaliate. He's probably got the whole thing planned out. How to make you look like the aggressor. How to get you suspended or even arrested." Anya looked at Elias's genuinely concerned face, then at the students streaming past, some still whispering and pointing in her direction. Roman had been methodical in his campaign to isolate and humiliate her. Every single move was calculated, designed to push her toward a reaction that would serve as the justification for his cruelty. "Maybe it's time to give him exactly what he's expecting." She shrugged off Elias's hand and started walking toward the exit. Behind her, Elias called out, "Anya, don't do this. It's not worth it." But some things were worth it. Her dignity was worth it. Her right to exist in this school without being terrorized was absolutely worth it. And sometimes you come to understand that the only way to truly stop a bully is to show them that their chosen target can bite back. Outside, Roman and his crew were clowning around in the parking lot, likely celebrating their successful character assassination. They looked so utterly pleased with themselves, so supremely confident in their power. Anya dropped her backpack by the school's entrance and began to walk toward them with a clear, undeniable purpose. It was time to have that conversation Roman kept insisting on, but this time it was going to be on her terms. Roman was still laughing about the recording when he saw Anya striding across the parking lot toward them. His laughter withered on his lips as he registered her purposeful walk, the way she had dropped her backpack as if it were dead weight. Well, well, look who finally decided to come and talk. Roman straightened up, with Leo and Finn automatically taking up their positions flanking him. Ready to apologize for being so unfriendly? Anya came to a stop 10 feet away, her voice ringing with calm clarity. "I'm done with your games, Roman. The fake recording, the harassment, all of it. This ends right now." "Oh, it ends when I say it ends?" Roman's confidence swelled with the presence of his audience. A few students had paused to watch, sensing the unfolding drama. "You think you can just march into my school and disrespect me? Think again. Your school?" Anya took a deliberate step closer. "The last time I checked, this is a public institution funded by taxpayers, which includes my mother." Roman's face began to redden. "Don't you get smart with me. You're outnumbered and you're outclassed. Walk away from this while you still can. I tried walking away. You followed me. I tried ignoring you. You escalated. I tried being reasonable. Another step closer. Now, we do this my way." Finn cracked his knuckles with a menacing grin. "Are you sure you want to do this? 3 against 1 doesn't look like very good odds for you." "Neither does picking on someone you mistakenly thought couldn't fight back." Anya's voice remained perfectly steady, but her stance subtly shifted, her weight balancing on the balls of her feet. "This is your last chance, Roman. Agree to leave me alone, and this doesn't have to get ugly." Roman let out a laugh, a harsh, grating sound in the afternoon air. "You're hilarious. What are you planning to do? Call your mommy? I'm going to give you exactly what you've been asking for." The instant Roman reached for her arm, Anya exploded into motion. Her training took over with fluid, devastating precision. She twisted away from his grasp, seized his wrist, and masterfully used his own momentum to send him stumbling forward. Before he could even begin to recover, her elbow connected sharply with his solar plexus, doubling him over in a gasp of pain. Leo lunged next, his swing wild and fueled by anger. Anya ducked under the clumsy blow, swept his legs out from under him, and sent him sprawling onto the hard asphalt. Finn hesitated, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, as he suddenly realized this was not going according to their plan. Roman straightened up, breathing heavily, his face a mask of fury. "You think you're tough? Let's see how tough you really are." What unfolded next was both brutal and efficient. Roman possessed size and raw rage, but Anya had skill and 8 years of disciplined, focused training. She moved like water around his awkward attempts to grab or hit her, striking with surgical precision whenever an opening presented itself. Leo and Finn kept trying to intervene, but they only succeeded in getting in Roman's way or finding themselves on the receiving end of Anya's sharp defensive strikes. The fight migrated across the parking lot as Roman relentlessly charged, kept swinging his fists, and stubbornly refused to stay down. By the time it was over, Roman was face down on the asphalt with Anya's knee planted firmly between his shoulder blades. They had traveled nearly half a block. Blood was flowing freely from Roman's nose. Leo was nursing a rapidly swelling eye, and Finn was holding his ribs gingerly. "Are we done?" Anya asked, her breathing controlled and even despite the intense exertion. "Get off of me," Roman gasped from the pavement. "Are we done?" she repeated, applying a slight pointed pressure. "Fine, we're done. You are going to leave me alone. All 3 of you. No more games, no more harassment, no more edited recordings. Are we clear?" "Yeah, we're clear." Anya released him and stepped back, watching as Roman painfully rolled over and sat up, blood trickling from his nose. The small crowd of students who had witnessed the entire event stood in stunned absolute silence. "Good talk," she said, then turned and walked back toward the school to retrieve her forgotten backpack. Meanwhile, inside the building, Principal Valenti was just finishing up her paperwork when her secretary knocked on the door. "Mrs. Valenti, there seems to have been some kind of incident in the parking lot. Students are saying there was a fight." Principal Valenti sighed and reached for her jacket. "How bad?" "Well, nobody's called for an ambulance, but you might want to see this for yourself." As the principal hurried outside, she found Roman Calloway wiping blood from his face, while Leo and Finn helped him struggle to his feet. A cluster of students stood nearby, their phones out, the air filled with their excited chatter. "What happened here?" Principal Valenti demanded. "Nothing," Roman muttered, deliberately avoiding her gaze. "We were just fooling around." "Roman Calloway, you are bleeding. That is not fooling around." "I fell," Roman said quickly. "I wasn't paying attention. I tripped over my own feet." Principal Valenti looked at him with skepticism. But before she could press the issue any further, Roman and his friends were already walking away, Roman leaning heavily on Leo for support. The following morning, the rumors had already mutated into the stuff of legend. Some versions claimed Anya had used hidden weapons. Others insisted she had single-handedly beaten up 5 guys. The actual truth was impressive enough on its own, but high school gossip had never been bound by the constraints of reality. During second period, a sophomore named Maya with a nervous energy approached Anya at her locker, her friend Amber hovering close behind. "Hey," Maya said quietly, her eyes darting around to make sure they weren't being overheard. "Can we talk to you about something?" Anya studied the 2 girls. Maya looked scared but also determined. Amber seemed ready to flee at the slightest hint of trouble. "What's going on?" "We heard about what happened yesterday with Roman and his friends," Maya continued. "And we were wondering, would you be willing to help us with something similar?" "Similar? How?" Amber finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "There are these guys from Northwood High. They've been bothering us at the bus stop after school. Yesterday they—" She trailed off, looking to Maya to continue. "They grabbed Amber's backpack and dumped everything out," Maya finished. "They called her some really horrible names. They said they'd be back today to continue the conversation." Anya closed her locker and turned to face them fully. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Would you just come with us to the bus stop today?" Maya's voice wavered, caught somewhere between hope and fear. "Maybe if they see you there with us, they'll just leave us alone." Anya looked at their frightened, hopeful faces and thought about Roman's bloody nose, about the doctored recording, about every single small humiliation that had culminated in yesterday's confrontation. "What time does your bus come?" At 3:15, Anya walked to the bus stop on Maple Street, accompanied by Maya and Amber. The afternoon sun cast long, stretching shadows between the houses, and a cool breeze rustled the leaves overhead. The 2 girls stayed close to her side, their nervous energy so palpable you could almost feel it in the air. "They usually show up around 3:20, Maya whispered, glancing at her phone. "The bus doesn't get here until 3:45, so that gives them plenty of time to—" "To do what exactly?" Anya asked. Amber's voice trembled slightly. "Yesterday they surrounded us. They said we looked lonely and that we needed some company. When I tried to walk away, one of them grabbed my arm and said I was being rude. Then they dumped out my backpack and made us pick everything up while they just stood there and watched. They said if we told anyone," Maya added, "they would make sure we regretted it." Anya nodded, her eyes methodically scanning the street. "How many of them are there?" 3. Corbin's the leader. He's a tall guy with bleached hair. Jax has the sleeve tattoos, and Nash is the one who grabbed Amber." At precisely 3:22, a beat-up Camaro turned onto Maple Street, its speakers thumping with loud music. The car slowed as it neared the bus stop, and 3 guys climbed out with the confident swagger of people who believe they own the neighborhood. Corbin spotted Anya immediately, his eyes narrowing with confusion. "Who's the new girl?" "Nobody," Maya said quickly. "She's just waiting for the bus." Jax laughed, flexing the intricate tattoos that covered his forearms. "Looks like a somebody to me. Looks like a somebody who doesn't belong in this neighborhood." Nash took a step closer to Amber, who instinctively moved behind Anya for protection. "Did you bring some backup, sweetheart? That's not very friendly." "Actually," Anya said, her voice carrying with perfect clarity in the quiet street, "I'm here to have a conversation with the three of you." Corbin's eyebrows rose in amusement. "A conversation about what? About how you're going to leave these girls alone, starting from now on." The three boys exchanged glances before erupting into laughter. Jax dramatically wiped his eyes. "Oh, that's rich. The cavalry is just one girl who thinks she's tough." "I don't think anything," Anya replied calmly. "I am simply informing you that your campaign of harassment ends today." Nash stepped even closer to Amber, deliberately invading her personal space. "And what if we don't feel like ending anything? Then you will discover that some people do not make for easy targets." Corbin moved to flank Anya's left side, while Jax took the right. "You know what? I like you. You've got some spirit. Why don't you ditch these losers and come hang out with some real men?" "I'm not interested in hanging out with boys who get their kicks from terrorizing children." "Children?" Nash's voice turned ugly. "These aren't children. They're old enough to learn some respect." He reached out to grab Amber's shoulder, and that was the moment Anya moved. Her left hand intercepted Nash's reaching arm, twisting it away from Amber, while her right hand struck his wrist with a sharp, precise blow. Nash yelped and stumbled backward, cradling his injured arm. "What the—" Jax started to move forward, but Anya was already repositioning herself. "This is your last warning," she said, her stance balanced and ready. "Walk away." Instead, Corbin charged from her left while Jax came from her right. Anya dropped low, sweeping Corbin's legs out from under him while simultaneously pivoting to catch Jax with a sharp elbow to his midsection. Both boys hit the ground hard. Nash, still nursing his wrist, fumbled for his phone. "You crazy witch. I'm calling the cops." "Go right ahead," Anya said, without taking her eyes off Corbin and Jax, who were struggling back to their feet. "Tell them that 3 high school boys got beaten up while they were trying to assault 2 younger girls. I'm sure that will go over very well for you." From behind her own phone, Maya had been recording the entire encounter. "I got all of it," she said, her voice stronger now, more confident, including the part where Nash tried to grab Amber. Corbin wiped a trickle of blood from his split lip, glaring at Anya with a mixture of newfound respect and raw anger. "You have no idea who you're messing with. 3 cowards who pick on girls who are smaller than them." Anya's voice was dismissive. "Yeah, I've got a pretty good idea." Jax limped back toward the car, his tough guy swagger completely deflated. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Anya said firmly. "If I see any of you near these girls ever again, our next conversation will not be this polite." Nash started to say something, but Corbin grabbed his arm. "Come on, let's just get out of here." As the Camaro peeled away with a squeal of tires, Maya lowered her phone with shaking hands. "Oh my God, that was absolutely incredible. Are you both okay?" Anya asked, her attention returning to the 2 girls. Amber nodded, tears of relief welling in her eyes. "Thank you." "I can't believe you did that." "They were counting on you being too scared to fight back," Anya said. "Bullies always count on that." The bus rounded the corner, its brakes hissing as it pulled up to the stop. As they climbed aboard, Maya was already uploading the video to her social media accounts. "Everyone needs to see this," she said with excitement. "Everyone needs to know that someone is finally standing up to these creeps." Anya settled into a seat, completely unaware that Maya's video would be shared hundreds of times before dinner time, launching her from a local legend into a viral sensation overnight. By 7 p.m., Maya's video had been shared over 300 times. By 9 p.m., that number had reached 1,000. The caption was simple and powerful. "Girl stands up to bullies harassing students at bus stop." Finally, someone fights back. Comments flooded in from students across 3 different school districts. Stories of harassment, intimidation, and abuse that had long been whispered in hallways suddenly had a public stage. "This is the same girl who beat up Roman Calloway, too." "About time someone stood up to the Northwood crew. She should teach self-defense classes." Meanwhile, across town, Roman Calloway sat in his bedroom with an ice pack pressed against his still swollen nose, watching the video for the 5th time. His phone buzzed relentlessly with notifications. Friends were sending him the link, asking if this was the same girl who had so thoroughly humiliated him. "This can't be happening," he muttered, scrolling through the endless stream of comments. Someone had already connected the dots, posting about his own encounter with Anya in the school parking lot. His phone rang. Leo's name flashed on the screen. "Are you seeing this?" Leo's voice was tight with anger. "Everyone is seeing this. My dad is already asking me questions about why I look like I got hit by a truck. She's making us look like complete idiots. First us, now the Northwood guys. People are calling her some kind of superhero." Roman's jaw clenched so hard it ached. "She is not a superhero. She just got lucky twice." At the same time, in Northwood, Corbin Matthews was having a strikingly similar conversation with his crew. "How did we end up looking so weak?" Jax demanded, pacing back and forth in his garage while Nash nursed his still sore wrist. "3 of us against 1 girl, and we got absolutely destroyed." "Because she knew how to fight, and we didn't expect it," Corbin said, but his voice lacked any real conviction. Nash pulled up the video again. "Look at this. She doesn't even look winded afterward, and now everyone is calling us cowards and bullies." "We are bullies," Jax snapped. "That's the entire point. Fear is what keeps people in line. But if word gets out that some high school girl can take us all down, our reputation is shot," Corbin finished. "Nobody is going to respect us after this." Back at Viridian High, the viral video was igniting a different kind of chaos. Students who had long suffered in silence were suddenly discovering their voices. Principal Valenti arrived at school on Monday morning to find her voicemail completely full of messages from parents. Some were demanding that Anya be expelled for violence. Others were praising her for protecting their children. Most of them wanted to know why the school wasn't already addressing the rampant harassment their kids had been reporting. Her secretary, Mrs. Gable, handed her a thick stack of incident reports that had been submitted over the weekend. 12 students have come forward with harassment complaints. All of them mentioned seeing the video and deciding they couldn't stay quiet any longer. Principal Valenti flipped through the reports, her expression growing more troubled with each page she read. "How did we not know about any of this? Some of these incidents happened off campus. Others, well, the students say they did report them, but nothing was ever done." During first period, Anya found herself surrounded by students who wanted to thank her, to ask her questions, or simply to be near the person who had stood up to the very system that had failed them. "You're like a real-life action hero," said a sophomore named Liam, whose own report detailed months of harassment by older students. "I'm not a hero," Anya replied. "I just got tired of being pushed around." But even as the students celebrated her actions, the administration was scrambling to seize control of the narrative. Principal Valenti called an emergency meeting with the school board, where the conversation quickly shifted to damage control. "The incident happened off school property," Board President Mercer insisted. "We can completely distance ourselves from this, can we?" Principal Valenti pulled up the video on her laptop. "Because half of the comments are about how our school has a bullying problem that we have been systematically ignoring." Board member Albright leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that maybe we should actually listen to what these students are saying, instead of just worrying about our public image." The meeting grew heated as board members debated whether to support Anya or to suspend her for fighting. Meanwhile, a parent petition was circulating online demanding that the school implement mandatory self-defense training and provide better protection for all students. By lunchtime, over 50 students had signed up for a support group that Maya had organized. The group's mission was simple: to create a safe space for students who had experienced harassment and to advocate for better school protection policies. As Anya walked through the hallways, she noticed the palpable change in the atmosphere. Students who had once averted their eyes now offered her respectful nods. Teachers who had previously turned a blind eye to subtle harassment were suddenly more vigilant and observant. But she also noticed Roman and his friends watching her with a look of undisguised hatred. And she knew that while she had won 2 significant battles, the war was far from over. The viral video had given her a platform and a following, but it had also painted a target on her back that was bigger and more visible than than ever before. On Tuesday morning, Anya was summoned to the principal's office before the first bell. Principal Valenti sat behind her desk with the tense expression of someone who had been awake far too long, dealing with an endless barrage of phone calls. "Please sit down." Principal Valenti gestured to the chair across from her. "We need to have a discussion about what happened at that bus stop. Students were being harassed. I helped them by engaging in physical violence off of school property." Principal Valenti opened a file on her desk. "I have received 17 calls from parents since yesterday. Some of them want you expelled, others want you to be given a medal. The school board is meeting tonight to decide how to handle this entire situation." Anya kept her voice perfectly level. "Handle what situation? I defended 2 students from being assaulted. You beat up 3 boys and it was posted online for the world to see. I didn't post anything, and those boys were terrorizing students from this very school." Principal Valenti rubbed her temples wearily. "Anya, I understand your frustration, but vigilante justice is not the answer. We have procedures. We have protocols. Your procedures didn't stop Roman Calloway from harassing me for an entire week. Your protocols did not protect Maya and Amber from being grabbed and threatened. That's not—" Principal Valenti started, then stopped herself. "Look, I am trying to help you here. The school board wants this situation to just quietly disappear. If you agree to stop these physical interventions, we can probably avoid a suspension. And if I don't agree, then we will have to consider more serious consequences." Anya stood up from the chair. "Is that all? Please think about what I have said. This path you are on, it is not sustainable." As Anya left the office, she found Liam and 3 other students waiting for her in the hallway. "We heard you got called in," Liam said nervously. "Are you in trouble?" "Maybe," Anya said, starting to walk toward her locker. "Why?" "Because we wanted to ask you something." Liam hurried to keep pace with her. "A bunch of us were talking, and we were wondering, would you be willing to teach us what you know?" Anya stopped walking. "Teach you what?" "How to fight back. How to defend ourselves." Liam's voice grew stronger with each word. "I have been getting pushed around since the 7th grade. Yesterday, for the very first time, nobody bothered me. They're all scared that you might be watching. That won't last forever." "Exactly. That's why we need to learn how to protect ourselves." A girl named Chloe stepped forward. "My older brother goes to Northwood. He says those boys you fought are planning something. They are embarrassed, and they are angry." "What kind of something?" "He wouldn't say, but he warned me to be careful walking home." Meanwhile, in the gym office, Coach Mason was having his own difficult conversation with Principal Valenti. "You want me to ban her from using the gym?" Coach Mason crossed his arms, his disbelief evident. "For what?" "For starting an unauthorized martial arts program. Parents are calling it a fight club. Have you actually seen what she's doing? She is teaching kids how to defend themselves, basic moves, confidence building. It is exactly what half of these students need." Principal Valenti sighed. "The insurance liability alone is less than what we will face when one of these harassment incidents turns into something far worse." Coach Mason leaned forward. "Sarah, I have been teaching here for 12 years. I have never seen students more engaged in physical fitness than they have been this week. The school board does not see it that way. Then, maybe the school board needs to spend some time in these hallways, watching how these kids interact. Now, watching how the bullies are suddenly finding other things to do with their time." That afternoon, Anya arrived at the gym to find 30 students waiting for her. Word had spread like wildfire, despite the administration's concerns. Students who had never spoken a word to each other were now united by their shared experiences of harassment and a burning desire to change their situations. "I spoke with Principal Valenti," Anya announced. "The school board does not want us meeting in here." A ripple of disappointed murmurs went through the group. "However," Anya continued, "this is technically after school hours and Coach Mason has given us his permission to use this space." Coach Mason emerged from his office. "As far as I'm concerned, this is a fitness club focused on self-defense and confidence building, and it is completely within school guidelines." The students erupted in cheers, but Anya held up her hand for quiet. "Before we begin, Everyone needs to understand something very important. This is not about fighting. This is about having the skills and the confidence to protect yourself and to protect others. We do not look for trouble, but we do not run from it either. As she began to teach them basic defensive stances, she noticed Roman and Leo watching through the gym's large glass doors. Their expressions were a mixture of anger and something that might have been fear. Roman turned to Leo. "Look at them. She is building an army. What are we going to do about it?" Roman's smile was cold. "We are going to make sure that everyone understands that actions have consequences." Inside the gym, students practiced breaking free from wrist grabs and learned verbal de-escalation techniques, completely unaware that their newfound confidence was being viewed as a direct threat by those who had long profited from their fear. By Friday, Anya's self-defense program had swelled to over 60 students. The corner of the gym buzzed with a new kind of energy as teenagers practiced escaping holds, building up their confidence, and learning how to project strength through their body language. "Remember," Anya called out to the group, "the goal is always to de-escalate the situation and get away safely. Fighting is the absolute last resort, not the first option." Chloe, who had been quiet and withdrawn just a week ago, now stood taller and straighter as she practiced her defensive moves. "I can't believe how different I feel," she told Liam during a water break. "Like I actually have some control over what happens to me." "Same," Liam replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Yesterday, when those seniors tried to mess with me in the hallway, I just looked them straight in the eye and kept walking. They backed off." Coach Mason watched from his office, taking notes for his report to Principal Valenti. The transformation he was witnessing in these students was truly remarkable. It wasn't just physical, it was in their entire demeanor. They walked taller, they spoke with more confidence, and they seemed to support each other in ways he had never seen before. But while the program flourished inside the gym, outside, forces were mobilizing against it. That same Friday evening, Roman Calloway sat in his car in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, waiting. His nose had healed, but his pride remained shattered. The video of his humiliation had been viewed over 10,000 times, accompanied by comments that made his stomach churn. At 8:30, a beat-up Camaro pulled into the parking spot next to him. Corbin Matthews climbed out, followed by Jax and Nash. All three of them looked just as angry and frustrated as Roman felt. "It took you long enough," Roman said as they slid into the booth across from him and Leo. "We had to make sure nobody followed us," Corbin replied, his voice tight. "We can't afford to have any more videos going viral." Finn shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I still think this is a bad idea. What if someone finds out that we're working together?" "Nobody is going to find out," Roman snapped, "unless you plan on running your mouth." Jax leaned forward. "Look, we all have the same problem. This girl made us look weak, and now everyone thinks they can stand up to us. Our reputations are garbage." "It's worse than that," Leo added. "She is teaching other kids how to fight back." "Yesterday, some freshmen actually pushed back when I tried to mess with him." "A freshman?" Nash nodded angrily. "The same thing is happening at our school. Kids who used to just hand over their lunch money are suddenly growing spines." Roman pulled out his phone and showed them a video from that afternoon's training session. 60 kids? She has 60 kids learning how to fight. In a month, it will be 100. "So, what's your plan?" Corbin asked. Roman's smile was cold and calculating. "We can't touch her physically anymore. There are too many people watching, too many cameras, but we can destroy her legally." "How?" "Assault charges. My dad knows people in the legal system. We file complaints with the police, claim that she attacked us unprovoked, get her arrested, expelled, and maybe even sent to juvenile detention." Jax frowned. "But there is video evidence of what really happened." "Videos can be misinterpreted," Roman said smoothly, "especially when you have the right lawyer explaining them to a judge. My dad has already spoken to our family attorney." "What about the bus stop thing?" Nash asked. "That video is everywhere. 3 high school boys versus 1 girl. We'll claim that she was armed, that we were just defending ourselves. Who is going to believe that we were actually trying to hurt those sophomore girls?" Leo nodded slowly. "And once she's arrested, her little fight club falls apart. The kids go back to being scared, and we go back to being in control. Corbin looked skeptical. This could backfire. What if people don't believe us? They will, Roman said confidently. Because my family has influence in this town, and hers doesn't. Because we are the victims here, not her. The 6 boys spent the next hour meticulously planning their strategy. They would coordinate their stories, file their complaints simultaneously, and present a united front, all claiming that Anya Sharma was a dangerous individual who had attacked innocent students without any provocation. Meanwhile, back at the school, Anya was finishing up the training session, completely unaware of the legal trap that was being set for her. "Same time on Monday?" Chloe asked as students gathered their belongings. "Absolutely," Anya replied. "And remember to practice your situational awareness over the weekend. Trust your instincts." As the students filed out, chattering excitedly about their progress, Coach Mason approached Anya. "You have done something truly special here," he said quietly. "These kids are different. They're stronger." "They were always strong," Anya replied. "They just needed someone to help them remember it. Be careful, though. Change like this makes some people very nervous, especially the people who benefit from the old system." Anya nodded, gathering her own things. She had felt the tension building all week. The way Roman and his friends watched her, the whispered conversations that would stop whenever she approached, the sense that something was brewing just beneath the surface. What she didn't know was that the storm was about to break, and it would test not just her fighting skills, but her very faith in justice itself. On Monday morning, Dr. Lena Sharma received the call that changed everything. She was reviewing patient charts at the hospital when her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Dr. Sharma, this is Sergeant Miller with the Viridian Police Department. We need you to come down to the station with your daughter." Lena's blood ran cold. "Is Anya hurt?" "What happened?" "She is not hurt, ma'am, but assault charges have been filed against her. We need to bring her in for questioning." "Assault charges? That is impossible." "My daughter doesn't—" "Ma'am, we have 6 complainants. I suggest you contact a lawyer." Lena's hand shook as she called Anya's school, then her own supervisor, to request an emergency leave. By the time she reached Viridian High, the police were already waiting in the principal's office. Principal Valenti looked stricken as she explained the situation. 6 boys from 2 different schools have filed formal complaints claiming that Anya attacked them without any provocation. "That is ridiculous," Lena said firmly. "My daughter was defending herself and protecting other students." "The complainants tell a different story," Sergeant Miller said, checking his notes. "They claim that she has been systematically targeting and assaulting male students. They are requesting restraining orders." When Anya was called to the office, her calm composure wavered for the very first time since she had transferred to Viridian. Seeing her mother's worried face and the police officer's stern expression, she understood that Roman's retaliation had taken a form she had not anticipated. "Am I under arrest?" she asked quietly. "Not yet," Sergeant Miller replied. "But you need to come down to the station for questioning. Your mother can accompany you." As word spread like wildfire through the school that Anya had been taken away by the police, the student body erupted into a state of organized chaos. Maya Martinez burst into tears when she heard the news. "This is all my fault," she sobbed to Chloe. "If I had never posted that video." "No," Chloe said firmly, surprising herself with her own newfound strength. "This is Roman's fault, and Corbin's, and all of the other bullies who can't stand the fact that someone finally stood up to them." Within an hour, students were organizing. Liam created a group chat called Justice for Anya that grew to over 200 members in just 30 minutes. Videos from the bus stop incident were being reposted with detailed explanations of what had really happened. Elias Reed, who had tried to warn Anya weeks ago, now found himself leading an impromptu protest in the school cafeteria. "They are trying to destroy her for protecting us," he announced to anyone who would listen, "for giving us the courage to protect ourselves." Meanwhile, at the police station, Anya sat in an interrogation room with her mother and the court-appointed lawyer Lena had hastily contacted. "Tell me exactly what happened." The lawyer, Ms. Eris Croft said, starting with your very first day at school. Anya recounted everything. Roman's demand for protection money, the escalating harassment, the doctored recording, the parking lot confrontation, and the bus stop incident. Her mother listened with a growing anger as details emerged that Anya had never shared. "Why didn't you tell me about any of this?" Lena asked, the hurt evident in her voice. "Because I thought I could handle it myself, and because I knew that if you complained to the school, it would just make things worse." Ms. Croft took notes furiously. "Do you have any evidence of this harassment?" "Some. I took photos of the things they did to my locker. There might be security footage of some of the incidents." Back at the school, Coach Mason was having his own heated conversation with Principal Valenti. "You know that this is wrong," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "You have seen what that girl has done for our students, the confidence she has given them, the way she has helped them to stand up for themselves." "My hands are tied," Principal Valenti replied. 6 families have filed complaints. The school board is in crisis mode because they are more worried about lawsuits than about doing what is right. Coach Mason, no. Let me finish. I have watched Roman Calloway and his friends terrorize students for years. I have filed reports, I have recommended interventions, I have suggested consequences. And what happened? Nothing. But one girl stands up to them, and suddenly everyone is concerned about violence in our schools. The conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. Mrs. Gable entered, looking completely overwhelmed. "Principal Valenti, there are about 50 students in the main hallway holding signs. They are demanding that Anya's charges be dropped." "Signs? What kind of signs?" "Justice for Anya. Stop protecting bullies. She defended us." "And there are parents arriving now, too." "Lots of parents." Principal Valenti closed her eyes. "Call the school board president. Tell him we have a situation." As the protest grew outside, Dr. Williams sat beside her daughter in the police station, watching her child face the consequences for having the courage to stand up to injustice. "Whatever happens," Lena whispered, "I am so proud of you." Anya squeezed her mother's hand, knowing that the fight for her freedom was just beginning, but also knowing that she was no longer fighting it alone. 2 weeks later, on the night before the trial, Anya sat at her kitchen table, reviewing her testimony with Ms. Croft. The lawyer had become a fierce advocate for her, working pro bono after she had seen the overwhelming evidence of systematic harassment. "Remember," Ms. Croft said, tapping her pen against her legal pad, "stick to the facts. Do not let their lawyer provoke you into anger. That is exactly what they want." "What if the judge doesn't believe me?" Anya asked, finally voicing the fear that had been keeping her awake at night. "Then we will appeal. But I think you are going to be surprised by just how much support you have." Dr. Williams entered the kitchen, carrying a box filled with printed emails. "These are just from today," she said, setting it down heavily on the table. "Letters of support from parents, from students, even from teachers at other schools who have heard about your case." Ms. Croft smiled. "The prosecutor's office is receiving similar correspondence. Public opinion is strongly in your favor. Across town, Roman Calloway was having a very different kind of conversation with his father's attorney, Mr. Alistair Finch, a sharp-dressed man with cold eyes and an expensive watch. "I want you to understand something," Finch said, his voice cutting through the tension in the Calloway family's living room. "If any inconsistencies emerge in your testimony tomorrow, this entire case will fall apart." Roman shifted uncomfortably on the plush sofa. "There won't be any inconsistencies. There had better not be. Because if it comes out that you have been lying, assault charges will be the least of your problems. Filing false police reports is a felony." Leo and Finn exchanged nervous glances from their seats on the leather couch. The true weight of what they had done was finally beginning to sink in as the trial approached. "What about the videos?" Finn asked weakly. "People are going to see what really happened." "Videos can be taken out of context," Finch replied smoothly. "That is why we are emphasizing the pattern of violent behavior. 6 separate incidents make it much harder to claim self-defense." Meanwhile, Corbin Matthews was facing his own crisis of confidence at the Northwood Boys' emergency meeting. "I am starting to think that we made a huge mistake," Nash said, pacing back and forth in Jax's garage. What if they have evidence that we don't know about? Like what? Corbin snapped, but his voice lacked its usual authority. Security cameras, witnesses, I don't know. But this whole thing feels like it is spinning out of our control. Jax nodded grimly. My dad says that if we lose this case, we could be facing perjury charges. He is talking about hiring our own lawyer. Your dad is right to be worried, Nash said. Because I heard something today. Apparently, there are going to be like 20 students testifying for her tomorrow. Back at Viridian High, those 20 students were gathering in the school library for a final preparation session, organized by Elias Reed and Maya Martinez. Remember, Elias addressed the group, just tell the truth about what you saw and what you experienced. Do not exaggerate. Do not add details that you are not sure about. Chloe raised her hand. What if they try to make us look like liars? Then we stay calm and we stick to our stories, Maya replied. Because our stories are the truth, Liam nodded firmly. I have been bullied by Roman for 3 years. Tomorrow, I finally get to tell someone in a position of authority what that was really like. Coach Mason, who had been listening from the back of the room, stepped forward. I want you all to know how incredibly proud I am of your courage. Standing up in a court of law takes the very same kind of bravery that Anya showed in that parking lot. Will you be testifying too, Coach? Chloe asked. I will. And so will Principal Valenti, though she doesn't know it yet. The group looked surprised. Elias frowned. She is going to testify for Anya? She is going to testify about the harassment reports that were filed and then ignored. The pattern of behavior that led to this entire situation. Ms. Croft subpoenaed her this afternoon. As the meeting wrapped up, students hugged each other goodbye, knowing that tomorrow would determine not just Anya's fate, but the very future of their school's culture. That night, Anya lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led her to this moment. 8 months ago, she had been a quiet kid in Ironhaven, focused on her training and her studies. Now she was at the center of a legal battle that had divided her new community. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Whatever happens tomorrow, you changed everything here. Thank you. Similar messages had been coming in all evening. From students she had helped, from parents whose children had finally found their voices, and even from complete strangers who had seen the viral videos and been inspired by her courage. At 2 a.m., she finally drifted off to sleep, knowing that in 8 hours she would walk into that courtroom carrying the hopes and the fears of everyone who had ever been bullied, everyone who had ever been told to just stay quiet, everyone who believed that standing up for what is right was worth the risk. The trial would determine her legal fate, but the real verdict had already been delivered by her community. She had given them the courage to believe in justice again. The Viridian County Courthouse buzzed with an electric tension as supporters filled every single available seat. Students, parents, and community members had arrived early, creating a line that stretched all the way around the building. Judge Evelyn Rowe, a stern woman in her 50s, called the court to order at 9 a.m. sharp. The state versus Anya Sharma. Charges of assault in the 2nd degree, she announced. Mr. Finch, you may present your opening statement. Roman's attorney stood with an air of confidence, his expensive suit commanding attention. Your Honor, this case is about a pattern of unprovoked violence perpetrated by the defendant against 6 innocent young men. We will show that Anya Sharma systematically targeted and assaulted my clients, causing both physical harm and emotional trauma. He gestured dramatically toward Roman, who sat with his head down, expertly playing the victim. These boys were simply going about their daily lives when they became the targets of the defendant's aggression. The evidence will show that she is a dangerous individual who uses her martial arts training to intimidate and to harm others. Ms. Croft rose for the defense, her voice clear and strong. Your Honor, what we have here is not a case of unprovoked assault, but a case of a young woman defending herself and others from systematic harassment and bullying. The evidence will show that every single action my client took was in direct response to escalating threats and actual physical aggression from the complainants. The prosecution called Roman to the stand first. He took his seat with a practiced nervousness, recounting a completely fabricated version of events where Anya had approached him aggressively in the cafeteria. "I was just trying to be friendly to the new student," Roman testified, his voice quavering with false emotion. "I offered to show her around, to help her fit in. Instead, she became hostile, and she threatened me." "And what happened in the parking lot?" Finch prompted. "She cornered me and my friends after school. We tried to walk away, but she followed us. When I attempted to de-escalate the situation, she attacked without any warning." Ms. Croft stood for the cross-examination. "Mr. Calloway, isn't it true that you demanded protection money from my client on her very first day?" I don't know what you mean." "Isn't it also true that you created an edited audio recording to humiliate her in front of other students?" Roman's composure slipped slightly. "I never edited anything." "We will see about that." Ms. Croft turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I would like to present Defense Exhibit A." The courtroom fell completely silent as the original, unedited recording of Anya's English class discussion played through the speakers, followed immediately by Roman's manipulated version. The difference was stark and absolutely undeniable. Roman's face flushed a deep red as whispers erupted throughout the courtroom. That was just a joke. A joke that you used to humiliate my client in front of 30 students. Objection! Finch called out, but the damage was already done. The prosecution's case continued with Leo and Finn providing similar fabricated accounts, but their stories began to fall apart under cross-examination. Finn contradicted Leo's timeline, and Leo couldn't explain why security footage showed them harassing other students on the very same days they claimed to be the victims. When Corbin Matthews took the stand to represent the Northwood boys, his testimony crumbled even faster. "So, you are telling this court," Ms. Croft said, "that 3 high school boys were intimidated by one girl at a bus stop?" "She was aggressive," Corbin mumbled. "Aggressive? Or was she defending 2 younger students from harassment?" Ms. Croft played Maya's unedited video, which clearly showed Corbin and his friends threatening the girls before Anya had even intervened. The defense began with Elias Reed, whose testimony about Roman's 3-year campaign of bullying was devastating. Student after student took the stand, each one describing incidents of harassment that painted a clear and undeniable picture of systematic intimidation. Maya's emotional testimony about the bus stop incident brought several of the jurors to tears. "Nash grabbed my friend's arm when she tried to walk away. We were so scared, and we were outnumbered. Anya saved us." Chloe's testimony was equally powerful. Roman and his friends made school a living nightmare for anyone they decided to target. "Anya gave us all hope that someone would finally stand up to them." Principal Valenti's reluctant testimony about the ignored harassment reports and the school's utter failure to protect its students added a layer of institutional weight to the defense's case. Finally, Anya took the stand herself. Her calm, measured responses stood in sharp contrast to the complainant's nervous evasions. "I never wanted to fight anyone," she testified. "I just wanted to be able to go to school safely. When that was not possible, I defended myself and I defended others who were not able to defend themselves." During the closing arguments, Ms. Croft spoke directly to the judge's sense of justice. "Your Honor, the evidence is clear. My client acted in self-defense against systematic harassment and assault. To punish her for protecting herself and others would send a message that bullies can operate with absolute impunity, while their victims face criminal charges for simply standing up." Judge Rowe deliberated for 30 minutes before returning to the bench. The entire courtroom held its collective breath as she looked directly at Anya. "After reviewing all of the evidence and testimony, this court finds the defendant not guilty on all charges. Furthermore, I am recommending that the district attorney investigate potential perjury charges against the complainants." The courtroom erupted in cheers as Anya hugged her mother and her attorney, finally free from the legal threat that had been hanging over her for weeks. The gavel's final bang echoed through the courthouse as Judge Rowe's words settled over the packed courtroom. Roman Calloway sat frozen at the plaintiff's table, his face pale as the reality of potential perjury charges finally sank in. Behind him, his father's expression had shifted from confident authority to barely contained fury. "You told me this was a sure thing," Mr. Calloway hissed to Finch as reporters began to approach. "You said the girl didn't stand a chance." Finch was already packing his briefcase, eager to distance himself from the unfolding disaster. "Your son lied to me about the evidence. There was nothing I could do once those recordings surfaced." Across the aisle, Leo Wilson and Finn Carter sat in stunned silence as their parents processed what had just happened. Mrs. Wilson's face was white with shock. "Perjury charges? That's a felony, isn't it?" "Mom, Leo started, but his mother cut him off. "We will discuss this at home, and you will be calling every single family affected by this mess to apologize personally." Meanwhile, the Northwood boys were experiencing their own reckoning. Corbin Matthews watched his carefully constructed tough guy image crumble as his father stood to leave without saying a single word. Jax and Nash followed behind, their bravado completely evaporated. "This is insane," Nash whispered as they pushed through the crowd. "We could go to jail for this." "You should have thought of that before you decided to lie under oath," Jax's mother snapped, having overheard him. "I raised you better than this." As the families of the complainants filed out in shame, the courthouse celebration was just beginning. Students who had testified surrounded Anya with tears of joy and relief. "You did it!" Maya cried, throwing her arms around Anya. "You actually beat them!" "We did it," Anya corrected, looking around at all the faces that had supported her. "All of us together." Dr. Williams stood nearby, watching her daughter with a mixture of pride and pure amazement. The quiet girl who had moved from Iron Haven just months ago had become a symbol of courage for an entire community. "I am so proud of you, baby," she whispered when Anya reached her. "Not just for winning, but for how you handled all of this." Ms. Croft gathered her papers with a look of deep satisfaction. In 20 years of practice, she had rarely seen a case where justice felt so clear-cut. "The district attorney will definitely be pursuing those perjury charges," she told the Sharma family. "False police reports, lying under oath. These boys have some serious legal troubles ahead of them." Outside the courthouse, news vans lined the street as reporters interviewed students, parents, and community members about the landmark case. The story had grown beyond Viridian, becoming a national conversation about bullying, self-defense, and the institutional failure to protect students. "This sends a message," Elias Reed told a reporter, flanked by a dozen other students. "You can't terrorize people and then play the victim when they finally fight back." The weeks following the trial brought swift and decisive changes to Viridian High. Principal Valenti, chastened by her court testimony about the ignored harassment reports, implemented a raft of new policies for addressing bullying complaints. Zero tolerance became actual zero tolerance, not just empty words in a student handbook. Roman Calloway never returned to the school. The perjury charges, combined with the civil suits filed by several families whose children he had harassed, led to his enrollment in a private military academy 3 states away. His parents quietly sold their house and moved, unable to face the community where their son's crimes had been so publicly exposed. Leo Wilson and Finn Carter pleaded guilty to filing false police reports, receiving sentences of community service and probation. Both were required to attend counseling and complete anger management courses. Leo's college scholarship was revoked, and Finn was permanently suspended from the football team. The Northwood boys faced similar consequences. Corbin Matthews was expelled and charged with multiple counts of harassment from other victims who came forward after the trial. Jax and Nash were suspended pending their own legal proceedings, their reputations in complete ruins. But the most significant change of all came in the form of Anya's self-defense program, which was not only officially sanctioned by the school, but was expanded to be available to all students. 3 months after the trial, Coach Mason stood in the main gymnasium, watching over 100 students participate in what was now called the Student Empowerment and Safety Program. The waiting list had grown so long that they had added evening sessions and weekend workshops. "I never imagined it would grow this big," he told Anya, as she led a group of freshmen through basic defensive techniques. "Neither did I," Anya replied, gently adjusting a student's stance. "But I think people were ready for something like this. They just needed permission to believe that they could be strong." The program had evolved beyond just physical self-defense to include conflict resolution, bystander intervention training, and peer mediation. Students learned not just how to protect themselves, but how to recognize and interrupt bullying before it could escalate. Chloe, who had been one of Anya's very first students, now served as a peer instructor for the younger kids. "The best part isn't learning how to fight," she told a group of nervous seventh graders. "It's learning that you don't have to be afraid anymore." The transformation was evident throughout the entire school. Hallway interactions had changed fundamentally. Students walked with more confidence, they spoke up more readily, and most importantly, they supported each other when problems arose. Liam, who had been one of Roman's most frequent targets, now led a peer support group for students who were dealing with anxiety and depression related to past bullying. "Anya didn't just teach us how to defend ourselves physically," he explained to new members. "She taught us that we deserve to feel safe and that we have the power to make that happen." The ripple effects extended far beyond Viridian High. Other schools in the district began to request similar programs. Anti-bullying organizations from across the country reached out for consultations. College recruiters took notice of Anya's incredible leadership and community impact. On a quiet Friday afternoon in the spring, 6 months after the trial, Anya found herself sitting in the very same cafeteria where Roman had first demanded his protection money. But the atmosphere was completely different now. Students from different grades and social groups sat together. Conversations were livelier, and the underlying tension that had once defined the space was completely gone. Maya approached her table with a letter in her hand. "This came to the main office for you," she said, grinning. Anya opened the envelope to find a handwritten note from a student at a school in California. "I saw your story on the news and I started my own self-defense group here. We have 30 members now and 0 bullying incidents this semester. Thank you for showing us that we don't have to accept being treated badly." "Another one?" Elias asked, settling into the seat across from her. "Another one," Anya confirmed, adding the letter to a growing collection she kept in her locker. As she looked around the transformed cafeteria, then out the windows to where students were practicing confidence-building exercises in the courtyard, Anya reflected on how much had changed since that very first day when she had refused to pay Roman's protection money. She had come to Viridian hoping to avoid trouble and just get through school quietly. Instead, she had discovered that sometimes the most important battles are the ones you don't choose. They choose you. And sometimes, standing up for what is right changes not just your own life, but an entire community. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. As students gathered their belongings and headed to class, they moved with an energy and a confidence that would have been unimaginable just a few months before. Anya smiled as she packed up her own things. Her mother had been right about Viridian being different from Ironhaven. It was different. It was better. And she had played a part in making it that way. Walking through hallways that had once felt hostile, surrounded by students who had found their voices and their strength, Anya Sharma knew that some fights are worth everything you put into them. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have hand-picked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.